We've just seen the culmination of the FinTech Week conducted by Bank Negara last week. And I think the region is more conducive towards digital banks nowadays. So your story was actually very, very current and very, very spot on by way of timing. And I also noticed from your story that the bank CEOs are all very receptive to the commentary, judging by that. In your opinion, how ready or how not ready do you think they are?
Well, yeah, so good morning, Chuang. So I worked on this story with my colleague Adeline Paul Raj. It took some time because we were trying to get all the comments and trying to go on the ground to find out what exactly is happening. I think this story came about because remember Bank Negara came out with this, they're saying that by year end they're going to issue some guidelines and all that, and then you can see it's happening regionally. In Hong Kong they issued 8 banking licenses. Singapore came out with this comment, said that they're going to issue licenses potentially to non-bank parentage, you know, that kind of. So you can see the trend is moving. So we wrote into all the local banks here. 7 out of 8 replied to us, and you can see that basically from what we got was that they're not in denial. You can tell that, you know, they are aware that this is coming, that digital banks are coming, and they are looking at various strategies to work on it. We also spoke to the FinTech Association of Malaysia, and this was, we spoke to Rizwan Aziz. He is the president of FinTech Association Malaysia, and you can tell, I mean, he was very honest. He said that, you know, he feels that banks are at different levels of preparedness when it comes to the whole digital strategy, which I think is spot on.
Of course, correct.
Yeah,
correct.
You can tell like some banks are a bit more open, some banks they are really going full on, some banks are just, they're trying but not quite there yet. But I mean, it's inevitable. Digital banks are coming and they would, it's a wake-up call and they will have to prepare themselves.
You know, as a reporter that has been covering banking for so many years, right? Do you get the sense that Malaysia might be a bit, maybe not at the same speed as say Singapore or Hong Kong? I
guess it's a mixed bag, right? Because at one hand, I guess regulators in this kind of environment, I mean, the digital space is moving so fast, you know, and you have some markets like you mentioned, Hong Kong and Singapore, they're going all out and they're going fast. And of course, you have some regulators that are a bit more careful because you're not sure this is all new, you're not sure whether or not, because at the end of the day, if something grows too big, and it's too big to fail, it could be a systemic risk.
That's right. That's right.
And then again,
that's what saved us in Malaysia in 2008 because we were not so developed, right?
That's right.
Not so sophisticated.
Yes, yeah, in a way. And also regulators were really, I think our regulators learned from 1998 during the Asian financial crisis, and they've learned, and that is why maybe 2008 we weren't burnt as much. But then again, coming back to this regulation issue, I mean, the bankers did bring up, you know, when we spoke to them about digital banking, a lot of the bank, top bankers, we have Datuk Farad from Maybank, you know, he pointed out that, you know, I think he gave a very good comment here. He said, you know, digital banks are looking to target profitable segments of banking, but if they do not take on the corporate responsibility role in serving the underbanked, then they should be made to operate in a level playing field. I think he has a good point there.
Absolutely, by way of regulation.
Yes, because at the end of the day, as CIMB's Tengku Zafrul pointed out, it's known that banks are regulated about 5 times more than fintechs. You know, I mean, how fair is that, right? And then we also have Hong Leong Bank's Dominic Fuda, who says, you know, it's important for regulations to be aligned so that, you know, new and existing players, they can, I guess, compete in a more effective manner. Because if one competitor is, I guess, they do not have the advantage because they're over-regulated or they have too much regulations to adhere to, and you have another competitor that has no regulations, that, you know, it's free for them to do whatever, then it might be a bit unfair. Another interesting thing would be Alliance Bank's CEO, he mentioned this Joel Conrich. He said that, you know, deploying digital solutions from traditional banks may not seem as radical, but it could have its advantages because they have a bigger reach, right? And then there's also Datuk Sulaiman from M-Bank. He said ultimately, with this whole new thing that's coming on stream, digital banks and all that, who are the winners? Customers will be the winners from this. Yeah. And we also have Datuk Karusaleh from RHB Bank. He mentioned, actually, interesting note is that actually Malaysia, the market is a strong pull factor for digital banking because a lot of us are tech savvy. Right, you have digital where the mobile penetration rate is very high, digital savviness is very high. Affin Bank's Group CEO Kamarul Arifin, he says that they're looking, they foresee the birth of digital-only banks from the traditional outfits to compete with the influx of digital banks.
So that's a very interesting comment.
Yeah.
But from the edge perspective and yourself as well, how do you plan to map out your coverage and to plan your coverage you know, not just this year, but in the next, because this is a landscape that is shifting
Yes,
very fast.
it'll be interesting definitely to watch to see how it happens. I think from this, Adeline and I worked, we interviewed this very interesting person from EY. So he helped, so he's Young Sok Kim, he's EY Korea's financial services advisory partner, and he was there to help Kakao Bank in Korea when they first started. So in Korea there are two digital banks. You have K-Bank and Kakao Bank. And Kakao Bank is doing really well, and you know, but he noticed that a lot of the incumbent banks in Korea, I mean, it was a huge wake-up call, and they innovated as well with what Kakao Bank was doing. And Kakao Bank, although they've garnered a lot of customers, he says that the impact to market share is still very minimal. So traditional banks are still have the lion's share. So that's interesting, but definitely something to watch. Whether or not these new players would eventually take over the role of what banking is. And also in Malaysia, I think something that's interesting to watch is whether or not what Bank Negara will allow. So we've reached out to all the banks to see whether or not they're interested to apply for this digital banking license. 4 out of 7 who responded said they are keen. So we have CIMB, we have Hong Leong, we have M-Bank and Affin. And also, and Grab as well came on record to say that interest. So you can see that everyone's eyeing it, but what would Bank Negara, what kind of structure Bank Negara will allow, that'll be interesting to watch.